Hello, tribe. Welcome. Let's take a dive into the archives. Holiest of spirits, what energy needs to come forward the most? From the Most High Creator Source, from my ethereal original collective, for their highest good, of course. Your crown chakra appears to be wide open in my vision. You have some kind of royal radar. The Seven of Swords does indicate that you're walking away from some kind of betrayal that you likely picked up on. It may even indicate ways that you have been betraying your own self. I'm having a vision of a conversation I had with the Creator that I think I should share about this. It may relate to you. Sometimes I personally struggle to think in a linear way, like from a start of a thought to an end of a thought. My mind tends to jump through many quantum layers all at once, okay? Most of the time it serves me and I love it. Sometimes it drives me a little crazy. I'll be trying to think something through all the way, and then my mind's jumping into a million different places all at once. That stuff gets under my skin. It almost feels like my own mind is mocking me, okay? It's like my mind is talking back to me sometimes. I'll be having these really detailed thoughts, and then my mind will be like mocking my thoughts right back at me, like mirroring the lower version of my thought right back at me, as if it has a mind of its own. So I asked God what this was. I was trying to figure out why this was happening. God told me that the way the thoughts are like mocking you is showing you how you've been mocking your own self. And even beyond you, ways that you've been mocking God, is what he said. Spirit emphasizes that either way you slice it, you're mocking God, you're mocking yourself. You're very much intertwined with the Creator. So if you're disrespecting yourself or others, you're disrespecting creation, and that can cause this kind of feedback loop, which is how this mocking energy works. It like loops your thoughts against you. And in a way, it's like coming back to you the way that you have treated yourself, God, or others, or treated others as an aspect of God. So it's sort of like a test. Creator says it will stop when you change the way that you treat yourself and others. I know it seems a little intense, but the Father God that I work with is that way. I used to ask him questions about Satan, and I thought that Satan was an aspect of the Creator just like anyone else. So I would ask the Creator, do you have an evil side? Because I know you created so much beauty, but you also created a lot of evil. Does that reflect something inside of the Creator? And I ask him these kinds of questions, and he acts like I'm mocking him. He basically mirrors it right back at me and says, are you Satan? Are you responsible for all the evils? He basically says that you can be the creator of something without being responsible for everything that comes from what you created. So just like a parent had a kid, two parents, they make a kid, doesn't mean they're responsible for everything the kid does. The kid is their own person, even if they are an aspect of their parents. And the same kind of principle applies to the Creator. So he just kept repeatedly telling me not to mock him by associating him with all these evil ways of the underworld that don't have anything to do with him and what he brings to this world and the love that he embodies. So yeah, he got really offended, me connecting him with Satan. And Satan, when I used to channel him to learn about him, always said that I am an aspect of God just like everyone else. So why don't I get to be my fullest? They just want to be able to be themselves without having anyone trying to rule over them. They don't want any God ruling over them. And Satan would always say, I am an aspect of God, his shadow, the things he hides. And the reason why he doesn't want you to question him and he wants you to fear him is because he doesn't want you to know the truth about him, that all that evil also exists in him, just as much as all the good that exists in him. And he won't admit it. And that's the type of thing Satan says. So I say to God, I'm like, are you just trying to hide who you really are by telling us that we need to stop mocking you and asking questions? At least to this God. And this God is very strict. The God of order, the Father of order that I work with. And it's hard to get very clear answers, but he seems to get very pissed off anytime I try to blame anything of the evil world on him. The Father says, none of that wickedness is of his nature in any type of way. When talking to the Father, it is very dualistic. It is like, this is good, this is evil, don't mix them together. So I asked him, I'm like, so has Satan just been lying to me this whole time? Telling me that you're actually evil when you're not? I don't think he answered my question, to be honest. I'm pretty sure that he left when I asked him that. As if to say, like, you'll figure it out yourself. I'm not going to explain it any more than I already have. I don't think I personally fully understand how wicked some of these underworld forces really are. I have encounters sometimes with pretty evil entities, and I feel how evil they really are, and it's kind of like a wake-up call sometimes. And I get out of my bubble when that happens. And God was telling me that I am super protected and shielded by him, more than most people. And that's why I always feel blissful. And so he has to open the door to let me see what kind of evil really exists when he's not protecting me, just to remind me that we're always up against some kind of wicked force that never stops trying to take over. And to have Creator protecting you on the level he protects me as one of his angels, not everyone has that. So to feel like I'm in heaven all the time is because God has protection around me, so I never get hit by the enemy's attacks. But he was showing me that without that protection, you would be miserable, suffering, under attack 24/7. So don't take it for granted the way that he has wrapped you in this protection. And some other people in the world don't have that, so it doesn't always apply to everybody. Some people have to pull out so many stops to stay in a safe, elevated place. It's not natural for everybody. So I guess I have a blessing in that way. I have been through years of spiritual warfare before, of suffering. But that was a long time ago, and it no longer affects me, and I've been in a good place for a long time. So I was like one with heaven and God for most of my life. I had a few years of absolute attack, and then I went back to good again. And so I learned my lesson from that. I understand how it feels to be in that position, but I'm absolutely so grateful to have this shield over my life where I don't have to be super meticulous about every little energy, because I know God is working it out for me. And I would never want to do something to disappoint him to take that away. So to blame God for these fallen things, it's like blaming your own self for something that's not yours. So the Father of order, he is very dual. He has to maintain balance between heaven and hell. And when you get beyond the Father and you get into creative source energy, then it becomes less biased, where maybe we can include Satan and the underworld as a part of creation that serves a purpose. But when it comes to the Father, when it comes to order, he's not going to let the underworld leak into heaven and destroy the purity of it. So he has to keep them down and separate. Source energy will claim all of creation and try to nurture it in a very motherly way. It's more unconditional and wants to help anyone and everyone. The Father is far more conditional, but in the right way for the right reasons. So when I worked with Satan, I think in a sense he was trying to poison me against God. So he would say, you have a natural evil side, and that's normal, and your God isn't letting you be who you truly are, and he wants you to just be who you really are, the darkness in you. He wants you to claim it, enjoy it, act on it, and he makes it sound like he's setting you free, but I think he's just trying to program you to, live your life going against the Creator. So it's like he wants to turn all of the children of God into his rebels against God and make it seem like it's the right path, like it's the truer path, because there's less duality. Basically, be careful, because Satan will try to turn you into a master of the underworld, but God will make you a master in heaven. I do believe in larger realms beyond the Father, that Satan and underworld forces do serve a good purpose to create resistance so that we can expand in intelligence and goodness overall. It's a hard choice to fully understand, because if you go with Satan's option, you could be a ruler in the underworld. You could rule the dark nature and the dark force. But if you're patient and you listen to God's understanding and overstanding, in the long run, that position in heaven's going to pay off much more than being some kind of ruler in hell. At least that's what I believe. So Satan offers quick satisfaction, quick fixes. Do what you want, get your way. However you want to do it, just get your way. And God offers long-term solutions. And it's not a bunch of quick fixes. You have to be patient. You have to continuously prove your worth to yourself. You have to prove and embody your worth and your purity for your own sake. So I see you rejecting the devil's advances towards you, and that is increasing your self-worth. So you're seeing yourself as the truly divine being that you are. And when you're working with Satan, you can only see yourself as he tries to mold you to be. So he'll try to shape you, kind of to act just like him and be just like him. But God is going to make you the strongest version of yourself. And you're going to be glorified in benevolence. You're going to be glorified in God's light. So Satan tries to make you accept these lower natures that are not yours and they don't belong to you, trying to make you think that you're all demons and this is who you are. But God tells you that's not who you are. Not at all. And it feels real good to reject the devil and be embraced by God. So the only time the lower worlds, the underworld, and Satan serves a purpose is when it hits you with resistance, but it pushes you back towards God in the right direction. In that way, the resistance served a good purpose. And when it serves a good purpose, it can be called being of source, creator in some way. So in that way, it's balanced. But when people get consumed by Satan's wishes for them, like Satan has a certain plan and a path that he wants them to take, where they accept all this evil as their own and they start to embody it. So we're talking about very dualistic realms right now. You know, it's that endless battle between heaven and hell that I don't even want to be a part of. I can ascend beyond duality and I can get to just creative energy where none of that stuff applies to my life. No, I will not fall into a lower nature, but I'm not going to define my life based off dark and light 24/7. But if we're being honest, there's definitely a clear separation. So this duality, it serves a purpose depending on how you look at it. See, the underworld forces, they're just forces, negative energy, negative aspects of fallen natures. They can't do anything to us unless they can get a person to allow them in. And if they can get a person to act upon the lower natures they're trying to force upon them. So really, lower forces, they have no power unless somebody gives them access and power. So in a sense, they're harmless unless somebody gives them access to carry out their wicked agendas. So as a force of resistance, it's harmless as long as you say no and you deny it access. But these lower natures, when people don't deny them, then it becomes a big problem, where these people become the demons themselves. They've given the dark force a way to take on an embodiment through them, and now it's become like a real demon walking on this earth. So really just keep saying no to their advances, and you'll be good to go. So that was what I was picking up telepathically as far as like this deception. And I did a little test, a mental strength test with Creator. Creator was telling me, don't mock me and your thoughts will stop mocking you. I was like, I didn't even know I was mocking you, dude. But he even says like that kind of talk is mocking him. Talking to him without respect as the Creator mocks him. And he kind of says that your thoughts don't respect you because sometimes you speak in a very disrespectful way yourself. And it's just reflecting that back at you. So he says, like, speak to me properly and I will make sure that your thoughts speak to you properly and they stop mocking you. Okay? And all of this lower stuff is just the underworld mocking God because they want to be able to rule the universe and make all the rules and be greater than God, but they can't. And they constantly feel small. And instead of making a big war out of that energy, it would be nice if some of these underworld entities would just simply respect the Creator and the love that it brings. The Creator is not a dominating force. It just wants everyone to thrive. You know, it made the universal laws to serve everyone's best good in life. And those laws just restrict these demons in a way that they don't like. They want to have greater abilities where they don't have to serve anybody or be bound to anybody else's rules. They make it this big thing when they could simply accept that those rules are for their highest good and the highest good of everyone. All these underworld entities, they understand that they're connected to the creative source that we all share. So they can use that energy to do whatever they want, but only to a certain extent. They can't surpass universal cosmic law. But they think if they go beyond the Father to the source that they can. And they're trying. They're trying to create their own version of source that they think is better than the laws of the Father God. But the source chose the Father to create the laws. The source pulled the Father into being first to organize all the chaos and create reality and create form. So the Father has the ultimate rule appointed by the source, but sometimes they try to break those and bend those rules and laws because they know they're also part of the source. But they simply can't. The Father emerged through natural love. The Father of order is the highest place to exist in perfect harmony. When everything's working in perfect order and harmony and all is going according to plan, that's when you're working with the Father God. When things are chaotic, messy, destructive, whatever, that's the energy of the Mother. Okay? It's chaos, but it's unconditional love. It's just a big mess, honestly. So the Father's law brings order to the chaos. It's not to damn the chaos. The chaos is beautiful. Like, some of you guys have beautiful chaos. And you don't have to bow down to any kind of order. But when I speak of the underworld and Satan, it's something different than just chaos. Like, the chaos of unconditional love of the Mother is so beautiful. And the way that the Father builds it and structures it is so beautiful. And it comes from a place of pure love that the source, birthed through itself into these aspects. But as we go down, down, down in layers of existence, you get to the underworld beings like Satan, or beings who basically just play off sinful lower natures. Like, that's their whole gig. They play off of the lower natures that you already have inside of you, and they try to get you to embody that and act on that more until it starts to take over you. And some people love that thrill, but other people, they have the ability to find excitement through... It's like they don't get excited by sin. It's really hard to explain, and this is how I am. I am not one to fall into any lower natures. I barely even feel connected to being human, although I do make it work. Okay, I'm not of this world. I'm not of the flesh. So I don't fall for the tricks of the flesh. And all that Satan does will trick you into sin, into your flesh more and more, and make you think it's okay. And make you think it's fun. And God will tell you how to ascend out of that where the flesh doesn't even barely affect you anymore. And it's not to say that you can't enjoy it. Of course you can. But you're going to enjoy it in like sovereign ways. You know what I mean? If you're anything like me, if you're that close to God, you don't get pleasure out of the flesh like other people do. I know I sound really like cheesy and vanilla sometimes, but I'm not rejecting any part of myself, okay? My darkness is very light, but my darkness is my friend. But my darkness is something I've come to terms with within myself, and it's not going to be dictated by the underworld entities who want to tell me who to be. And it's likely I'm not going to let God dictate it either. I'm becoming my own master. If a god or the gods or any god wants to add on to my journey of mastery, okay, that's great. But I'm not the type to bow down to anyone. But the thing is, I'm more likely to bend when the Creator says bend than to ever break to go down into the levels of Satan's world. Like, that's it. I will bend for higher forces. I will bend my will and my purpose if I feel it serves a higher purpose than just myself and it will help everyone. But like breaking yourself into the lower natures where Satan's trying to get you to go, it's only going to be a path of self-service and really only caring about yourself. And that's a really inverted place to be. So I'm not willing to break to serve myself that way and not care about others. But I will bend to serve others because I know that will serve me too, as long as I'm doing what God says. Just like he said, being more respectful in general will make your being treat you with more respect. Even if you're like talking really nice to yourself and treating yourself really well, it's also about treating others and all that, even spiritual forces with respect to for who they are, and not trying to project onto them that there's something they're not. No one wants to be that. No one wants to be told that there's something they're not when they know that's not who they are. So basically, like, God didn't want me projecting onto him that he was tied to these lower natures. And he says that he's not. He says that Satan is a freaking snake. He's lying. Just trying to make you see God in a bad light, just like he does. So some of these gods and stuff are way above this human world, okay? But things like sin, which I associate with Satan, he basically just acts off sin and embodies sin. He's a human creation in a way. Like, humans fed him, humans turned him into a thought form. He's really not a god. He's really not a powerful deity. He's really not a powerful demon. He's basically just a reflection of humans who have no self-control. If they had more control, he would evaporate. So he's not very high up in the ranks at all, is what I'm trying to say. I'm like, I need to move on to the next cards, but the message just keeps going in my head, straight from source, too. That's my intentions. But you know why I work with the Father of Order? Because the source is just creative fuel and energy. It's not really defined until it passes through the chaos of the mother and gets organized by the order of the Father. And then everything is born from that duality. Okay? So for me to have something tangible to work with, I gotta step into a little bit of duality. Otherwise, we're just in creative la la land. Not that there's anything wrong with that. So basically, natural forces of order and chaos, they do work together in these higher realms. It's like humans who create the kind of thing that causes like evil. Evil is not a natural part of existence. I swear to you, Satan is just a reflection of the way the human mind falls and falls into these low places, and it creates these invisible forces out of its own fall. The mind falls, okay, and it creates invisible forces that can act. So it creates like invisible thought forms that can affect many people. But it stems from something in the human mind that has fallen into distortion. And, Satan is not Lucifer. Satan reflects human sin. Lucifer is a real fallen angel. I know that people don't want to hear it, but Lucifer is not evil. Lucifer is not just a thought form, so it can come up with its own perspective. It doesn't get he doesn't get tricked like that. He's not trying to make you fall into sin. Lucifer likes to just tell the truth. I don't know. People said he's like the king of lies. He's not. He actually likes to tell you the truth, even of God, of anything you could ever want to know. He just brings like natural enlightenment. And I don't think that Lucifer is against God, the Father, or the Creator. I think Lucifer is actually a very beautiful being. And I don't think people really know him. I think they confuse him with Satan. Lucifer actually will lead you out of the underworld within yourself and back to heaven if you ask him to. So humans are responsible for the way that they allow themselves to descend into hell. They do it to themselves, and they're always looking for something outside of them to blame, but it's their own damn fault. Well, that was a lot of information. See, Lucifer kind of represents when people come out of the fallen nature and they make the journey back to God, because that's something Lucifer has done as he has ascended. Listening to freaking Satan is just like the fool here, blindly looking in the other direction while you walk right off a cliff. That's what they do, following him. They're following him right off a cliff. I haven't read The Fool or The World yet in my new deck, so let's take a look at it, see if it gives us some more answers. See, I was seeing a vision of people descending into the satanic self and ascending and rising through a feminine energy, but how you view Satan or Lucifer actually reflects your own lower self, whether you see it as male or female. That was just something I was seeing in my head. So the journey through the underworld will teach you this. What it says in the book is, when the fool sets out, he lives primarily in his conscious mind, a stranger to his inner being. But by the end, he has glimpsed the deeper mysteries of his real self. The symbols represent the instinctive life that both holds one back and urges him on, just like I talked about. So you can use any experience as fuel to get to the next level if you're wise. So if everything is connected to the creative source fuel, then you can turn any fallen energy back into creative fuel, back into its original form, and use it to get to the next level. So you've taken the long way around, but the path leads back home to heaven. The book says, the fool's number is 0, the circle, indicating that he will end his journey back at the beginning, transformed by his travels. And the book says, remember that even the fool has flashes of great wisdom. That's making me think of Satan and Lucifer. I'm not one to damn people. Or entities. I will look for the good. But I have to know that these are all aspects and reflections of the Creator. Nothing can actually replace God. In the World card, she's also inside of a big 0. So you're definitely on a reset. You have become all the wiser. So you're not the fool anymore. You can't be fooled anymore. So you're reflecting a truer, higher version of wholeness as you take the next steps forward. So your journey through the underworld is ended, and your journey through the heavenly world is just beginning. Or maybe it's only getting richer from here. Instead of walking off that cliff like Satan said, you walked into a portal that gave you a sense of direction And that sense of direction, I'm sorry for lower entities, but on my channel, our direction, it goes into heaven and nowhere else. We're not going to follow anyone else off a cliff. You know what I mean? That old saying, just because someone says jump off a cliff, are you going to do it? No. That cliff, you quantum jumped over that obstacle into a portal where you feel complete when it comes to benevolent energy. Some people do not feel complete in purity, but we do. There's nothing lacking in the purity. That's Satan's whispers that say that you need to be dark when you don't. You don't need to be dark to be whole. Not on their level. At least not on my level. Like I said, chaos in a higher form does not mean evil. Acting on sinful, wicked natures, it's what invites in the evil. So feel free to love chaotically or just stay in perfect balance. Try to make room for both and know that that's okay. That's good. So you basically definitely know who the heck you are in this world. You know, melding the true darkness and true light, the ascended form within yourself. You know, melding the masculine and feminine. What that really means is just having a connection between the deeper parts of your psyche and your conscious everyday life and how those can work off of each other. Every single person has some levels of masculine and feminine energy. The scale that they have of these energies is different for every person. So the percentage of masculine or feminine energy each person has is very different. It's a whole spectrum for each person. But everybody does have a little bit of both. You have the side that creates and imagines and the side that builds and structures your creation and your imagination. Just how order brings laws and love out of chaos that serve us all. You do that within yourself. So when you take that fluid, creative, chaotic energy and you create something out of it, you know, you make it into an individual form of some kind. You take something with no form and you create form out of it. You basically just did what the father and the mother did to create you. You know, that creative, untapped chaos, you basically turned it into something tangible through your abilities to affect the world as an individual. So you're taking something untapped, untamed, and turning it into something real. That's working with masculine and feminine energy. That's going from 0 to 1. So no matter what a person presents themselves as on the outside, they have different levels of these energies inside. Everyone does. You guys must know that gender, the way people present themselves, is a social construct. Sex is like what you have down there, but gender is like the roles that you fit into in society. All of that is programming. The world programs us to think women have to wear dresses and makeup and men wear suits. None of that makes any sense if you really think about it. So if a guy wears a dress, he wants to be more feminine. How does that make sense? That's all just a construct. In ancient times, men wore dresses and things like that all the time, and it was still masculine, you know? And they used to wear makeup, and that was considered masculine. And so all of this is a social construct. Women, they wear pants and t-shirts just like guys. So does that make them masculine just because they want to wear pants? I'm not saying that I want to see grown men walking around in dresses, but the fact that women can wear like guys' clothes and it's still feminine, then guys should be able to wear women's clothes and it's still masculine. All of that is determined by how we choose to encrypt it. So does it make a woman a man just because she wears pants? Think about it. Say there's a woman who doesn't like to dress super girly, but she's still very feminine and she's a real woman. I don't think she would want to be called a man just because she doesn't dress super girly. You know what I mean? It's a whole scale. It can't be put into labels and categories of this and that. It comes down to every individual very uniquely. A woman could dress very simple and still be a woman. What you dress, how you present yourself is not the same as who you are inside. How you see people on the outside is just built through social constructs. What we call is acceptable and not acceptable. I worry about the world overly categorizing genders based solely off what you look like and how you dress and stuff like that. Say a guy wore a traditional, religious skirt or something of their culture that they wear. Does that mean we're going to start calling him a she because he's wearing a traditional gown? There's a lot of guys who wear traditional gowns in religious senses. So I think people need to get all that programming out of their head and realize internally it's a sliding scale. How you present yourself externally, it's not an automatic determining factor of your gender. Your gender is personal within you, regardless of your sex. So don't feel like you have to present a certain way for the world to fit you into their labels, okay? Make your own definition. Say you're a woman who's extremely logical and intelligent, but you're a woman. Do you want people calling you male because you're intelligent and you have masculine strengths? No. If you're a guy and you're sensitive, but you want to be a guy, do you think people are going to tell you you're feminine just because you're sensitive? No, that doesn't make sense. They shouldn't be doing that. And these things do exist. There are sensitive, very masculine men, and there's nurturing men who are very manly, and there's more logical, more serious, more structured women who are still very feminine. We can't put people in categories. That's not good for them. So that's what I wanted to say about that today. It goes with the theme of don't let other people tell you who you are. For example, a guy could be straight, very masculine, and yet still be the one who does the grocery shopping and takes care of the kids. That doesn't make them less of a man. And the woman could be the one who goes to work and things like that and provides, but it doesn't make her less of a woman. You gotta get that programming out of your head because it doesn't work that way. So you might need to make a judgment call to stop making judgment calls solely off of the way that people look or some kind of stereotype that you have in your head. For some people, not most of you. Most of you can see all the different layers in between. So those who have real faith, they're going to keep rising. Those who deny the Creator, they're just going to be bound to the earth and stuck. Hell is a state of mind that people put themselves in. Picking up on like heaven and hell vibes, I don't believe in heaven and hell, not in a traditional way really, but I do believe you can get yourself trapped in a very low place. So if you lived your life very rooted, very low and dense, you're going to be stuck there until you ascend out of the root chakra, and rise out of the crown to the heavens. So some of you go to heaven when you die because you've risen out of the crown into the higher worlds already. And then you get to experience an extension of your state of being in the afterlife. So the afterlife is going to reflect your high vibe and consciousness and spirit. But if you in life were very rooted in the lower natures, you might not even be able to go anywhere in the next life. You may just go into a world that reflects those lower natures, and that's what hell is. And you actually don't have a lot of energy being down there so much. So you might not even be able to have enough energy to take on another body and reincarnate. So basically, these people are so depleted that they get stuck in their lower chakras, their lower minds, and then they end up in a world that reflects the way they live their life in that lower nature. And to ever get out of it, they have to go through the ascension process to have the energy to take on an energy body or a soul body that can exist in heaven. So while you're here on earth, you're either building an eternal form that can exist in heaven or a damned form that can't even exist on earth. And you will go to a place that matches your consciousness. But if you actually get to heaven, you're going to be in realms beyond the mind and consciousness. So you want to be able to not let the mind trap you. None of these elements of your mind, don't let them trap you. And then you'll be light enough to ascend in the afterlife. So really low level people, they trap themselves in an inverted place within their lower chakras when they die. Ascended people go into an ascended place that reflects the crown and the source beyond the flesh. And these realms are invisible, but they do exist. You can only see them through spiritual senses. So if you're somewhere between ascended and fallen, you'll likely reincarnate until you can reach either one of those higher or lower dimensions that exist outside of the physical. So people who are super fractured and fragmented are the ones who end up in the underworld. People who have a sense of wholeness and they've united with their soul self, they end up in heaven. So fragmentation of consciousness, trauma, all that, it lowers people really deeply inside of themselves. The lowest parts of their mind ruled them because I guess they still live in fear and they don't have the full knowing of what's coming in the next life. I mean, I just broke it down and they still question it. That kind of questioning your path comes from fragmentation, from the world trying to rip you to pieces and tell you who to be. But if you think about it, talk to God, you know who you are. The love will build wholeness. Love does embody wholeness. Even love embodies the wholeness of chaos and puts it into order just for you to experience. So you're embodying the divinity of your life experiences, good and bad. Maybe calling back the parts of your knowing that you have been questioning. So you've likely been questioning your path a lot. And I think you need to call back your different aspects that other people have pulled off of you and ripped off of you. You know, people are like chipping away at your being a lot in this life. So do a ritual to reclaim your power and your energy, and you'll feel whole in a sense of love. Like you've already integrated the demons. That's a thing of the past, okay? So I'm not saying you're running from your shadow. I'm saying been there, done that, mastered it. Now you're just like abundant. I do see someone healing and integrating any solar consciousness fragmentation so they can embody their complete self. Basically, even your chaos ends up being beautiful because you have good intentions. Even your most fallen sides are actually quite divine. Give yourself more credit. I swear I've already said it a bunch of times, but Spirit is insistent that the thing that makes you unstable is letting all these other people define you. But when you stand in your own and you define your own self, you let your soul define you in the eyes of Creator, these other people, they can't touch you. They can't drain you. They can't rip you down. They can't tell you who you are. They don't know you. Remember that you know yourself. God knows you better than any of them. And just because they don't know God, don't let them make you feel unstable in what you know. God doesn't really cast people to hell. They do it themselves by lowering their consciousness so low. It's so low that they can't be a match for that heavenly energy. God isn't denying them, but they're denying themselves by they're not a match, a vibrational match for these heavenly energies, so they can't get through the gate. If they would just elevate, they could get through the gate. God is not damning them. God only damns the worst of the worst. Everyone else has a plan, a salvation, a plan of salvation. So don't damn yourself if you want to go to the heavenly realms, because the Creator, He's not damning you. The Father God is not damning you. People are doing it to themselves. Live in excellence, and you can expect excellence and nothing less. Alright, today's message has been of the highest source truth. I think I'm going to leave it as it is, and I will talk to you in another video, everyone. Take care.